Hello and welcome to The Essential Reads. My name is Isaac and my goal is to bring you a bunch of classic audiobooks in an easy and accessible way. We are continuing with Crime and Punishment by Fyodor Dostoyevsky, and this is part 2, chapter 4. Zossimov was a big fat man with a puffy, colourlessly pale and smooth-shaven face, and straight, very fair hair. He wore spectacles, and on one of his fat, swollen fingers there was a large gold ring. He must have been about 27. He was dressed in a light, capacious, and stylish paletot, with light-coloured summer trousers, and in general, everything about him was ample, stylish, and brand new. His linen was immaculate, his watch chain massive. His manner was slow, giving an impression of being at once languid and at the same time stupidly familiar. Although he did his utmost to conceal them, his pretensions to superiority showed through it every moment. Everyone who had anything to do with him found him a hard man to get along with, but said that he knew how to do his job. "I've been to your place twice today, brother. You see, he's woken up," cried Razumikhin. "I see. Well, so what are we feeling like now, eh?" Zossimov said as he turned to Raskolnikov, peering at him fixedly and coming to sit at his feet on the sofa, where he immediately sprawled into a lounging position as far as was possible. "Oh, he's in a constant fit of spleen," Razumikhin went on. "We changed his linen just now and he practically burst into tears." "That's natural. You could have left the linen until later, if he didn't want it changed. His pulse is first rate. I expect you've still got a bit of a headache, eh?" "I'm all right. I'm perfectly all right," Raskolnikov said insistently and with irritation. Suddenly he sat up on the sofa, his eyes flashing, but immediately collapsed back on the pillow and turned his face to the wall. Zossimov was observing him fixedly. "Very good. All's as it should be," he said languidly. "Has he had anything to eat?" They told him, and asked him what sort of food he should be given. "Oh, he can have anything he wants. Soup, tea, no mushroom or cucumber, of course. Oh yes, and beef's not a good idea either. And... but what's the point of my sitting here chatting away like this?" He exchanged glances with Razumikhin. "No medicine, and no nothing. And tomorrow I'll look in again. Perhaps even later on today. Yes, why not? Tomorrow evening I shall take him out for a walk," Razumikhin said decisively. "We'll go to Yusprov Park, and then look in at the Palais de Cristal." "I wouldn't have him up and about tomorrow, although a little. Well, we'll see later on. Oh, what a pity. I'm giving a housewarming party this evening, and it's just a couple of yards from here. I wish he could come too. He could lie in our midst on the sofa. You'll come, won't you?" Razumikhin said suddenly, turning to Zossimov. "Don't forget now. You've promised." "I may look in a bit later on. What have you planned?" "Oh, nothing. Tea, vodka, herring. There's to be a pie. Just some friends getting together." "Who exactly?" "Well, they're from all around here. And they're most of them new acquaintances, to tell you the truth. Except perhaps for old uncle. And he's new too. Only arrived in St. Petersburg yesterday. On some wretched business or other. I see him about once in every 5 years." "Who is he?" "Oh, he's been vegetating all his life as a district postmaster. He draws a miserable little pension of 65 a year. It's hardly worth talking about. I'm actually rather fond of him. Porfiry Petrovich will be coming. He's the head of our local criminal investigation department. A trained lawyer." "Oh, you know him. Is he some kind of relative of yours too?" "Only of the most distant kind. But why are you frowning? You mean to say that just because the two of you once had a swearing match, you may not come?" "I don't give a spit about him." "So much the better then. Well, and there'll be some students, a teacher, certain government clerk, certain musician, an officer, Zamyotov. I say, would you mind telling me what you or he," Zossimov nodded at Raskolnikov, can possibly have in common with a fellow like Zamyotov? All these fussy folks. Principles. You operate on principles as though they were mechanical springs. You don't even dare to turn around of your own accord. In my view, the man's all right. That's the only principle I go on, and I won't hear another word against him. Zamyotov's a splendid chap. He's got an itchy palm. So what if he has? I don't give a spit. What of it anyway? Razumikhin exclaimed suddenly, getting inordinately worked up. Did I praise him to you for having an itchy palm? All I said was that he's all right in his own way. To be quite honest, if one goes into all the ins and outs of everyone, are there really going to be all that many good people left? I mean, I'm certain that no one would give so much as a baked onion for me, entrails and all. And even then, only if you were thrown in as well. That's not enough. I'd give 2 for you. Well, I'd only give 1 for you. Zamyotov's still a little boy, and I'll give his hair another pull, because he must be drawn along and not pushed away. If you push a man away, you'll never set him on the right path. And the same is even truer of a boy. With a boy, you have to be twice as careful. Oh, you progressive blockheads, you don't know a thing. You've no respect for others, and you've no respect for yourselves. But since you're asking, yes, we may very well have a certain matter in common. I'd be most interested to hear about it. It's all to do with that case about the painter. The decorator, that is. Oh, we'll get him out of trouble. Actually, he's not in any danger now. The whole thing's quite obvious. All we need is some more steam. What decorator is that? What? Didn't I tell you about him? I didn't? No, that's right. I only told you the beginning. You see, it's about this murder there's been. Of the old woman pawnbroker, the civil servant's widow. Well, now there's a decorator mixed up in it. Oh, I heard about that murder before you did. And I'm actually rather interested in the case. Partly because of a certain circumstance. And I've been reading about it in the newspapers. And now... Lizaveta was murdered too. Nastasya blurted out suddenly, turning to Raskolnikov. She had remained in the room all this time, huddled up beside the door, listening. Lizaveta? Raskolnikov murmured in a barely audible voice. Yes, the market woman. You know who I mean, don't you? She used to come in downstairs. Mended a shirt for you once, too. Raskolnikov turned to the wall, where, on the dirty yellow wallpaper, with its little white flowers, he selected one clumsy white flower in particular, which had small brown lines on it, and began to examine it to see how many leaves it had, how many serrations there were on each leaf, and how many lines. He felt that his hands and feet had gone numb, as though he had lost the use of them. But he did not even try to move, and stared persistently at the flower instead. Well, what about the decorator? Zossimov said, interrupting Nastasya's chatter with a peculiarly marked displeasure. Nastasya sighed and fell silent. They've got him on the list of the suspects, too, Razumikhin went on, animatedly. On what evidence? They don't need evidence. But as a matter of fact, it's the evidence that won't stand up, and what we've got to prove is that it's not evidence at all. It's exactly how they behaved at the beginning when they arrested those other 2 fellows and put them on the list of suspects. What were their names again? Oh yes, Koch and Pestryakov. What a stupid way it is all being handled. It gives one a nasty feeling, even though one's not involved. This Pestryakov chap may be looking in at my place this evening. Actually, Roger, you already know about this business. It all happened before you got ill. Just the evening before you fainted in the bureau, when people were talking about it there. Zossimov gave Raskolnikov an inquisitive look. Raskolnikov did not move. Do you know something, Razumikhin? I've been keeping an eye on you. You're a busybody, Zossimov observed. That is maybe, but we'll get him out of it all the same, Razumikhin exclaimed, banging his fist on the table. I mean, what is it that's so offensive about the whole thing? I mean, it's not the fact that they're lying. One can always forgive a man for telling lies. Lying is a harmless activity, because it leads to the truth. No, what's offensive is that they're lying and making a fetish out of their own inventions. I've got a lot of respect for Porfiry, but, I mean, for example, what set them on the wrong foot to start with? The door was closed, but when they got there with the yard keeper, it was open. Right, they said. Koch and Pestryakov must have done it. That's the sort of logic they follow, you see? Oh, don't get so worked up. They've simply been detained, that's all. It's inevitable. Actually, I've met Koch. Why, he turned out to have been buying up unredeemed pledges from the old woman, didn't he, eh? Yes, he's some kind of swindler. He buys up promissory notes as well. A professional. Oh, to the devil with him. No, what I'm trying to say is, there's something about it that makes me angry. You know what I mean? It's that rotten, stinking, fossilized routine of theirs that makes me angry. Yet here, in this one case alone, one might open up a whole new approach. From the psychological information alone, it would be possible to show how to get onto the right track. We've got facts, they say, but facts aren't everything. At least half of the battle consists in how one makes use of them. And that's what you're able to do. Well, I mean, one can't just stay silent when one knows instinctively that one could be of assistance on the case if... Oh, damn it! Look, are you familiar with the details of the case? I'm waiting to hear about the decorator. Oh yes, that's right. Well then, listen here. Here's the story. Just 3 days after the murder, in the morning, where they were still wasting time with Koch and Petryakov, even though those fellows had accounted for every single move they'd made. It's so obvious, it's crying out loud. A most unexpected fact popped up. A certain peasant named Dushkin, the landlord of a drinking den opposite the building in question, appeared at the bureau with a jewel case containing some gold earrings, and launched into a long tale. This fellow came running into my place, he said, 2 days ago, just after 8 o'clock in the evening. The day and the hour. You get the point? A decorator he was by trade, and he'd been into my establishment earlier on, in the afternoon. Mikolai, they call him. He brought me this box with some gold earrings and precious stones, and he wanted me to give him 2 rubles on account of them. But when I asked him where he got them from, he said he'd found them on the pavement. I didn't inquire any further. This was Dushkin speaking. But let him have a ticket, a ruble, that is, because I figured that if he didn't pawn it with me, he'd find someone else to pawn it with, and it would all be the same. He'd drink the money away, and the things would be better with me. The further away you put it, the closer it is to hand, as they say. And I thought, if anything turns up, or I hear any rumors, I'll take it into the bureau. Well, of course, this was all a load of moonshine. He was lying like a horse. For I know this Dushkin. He's a pawnbroker himself, and hides stolen goods. And he wouldn't go diddling Mikolai out of an order worth 30 rubles merely in order to take it in. He was just scared, that's all. But to the devil with that. Listen, Dushkin went on. Now I've known this peasant, Mikolai Demenchev, since he was little. They come from the same province, Ryazan, and the same district, Zaraisk. And though Mikolai's no drunkard, he likes a drop now and again. And I knew he was working in that building, doing up the place together with Mitri. They're both from the same village. Once he got the ticket, he immediately changed it into coins, drank 2 glasses of vodka straight off, took his change, and made off. I didn't see Mitri with him at the time. Well, the next day we heard that Alyona Ivanovna and her sister, Lizaveta Ivanovna, had been murdered with an axe. I knew them, sir, and it was then that I suddenly had my suspicions about the earrings. Because I knew that the old woman used to pay out money on pledged items. I went to their house and began to make cautious inquiries, softly. And the first thing I asked was whether Mikolai was there. Mitri told me that Mikolai had gone off on a binge, and had come home at dawn, drunk. Had spent about 10 minutes there, then gone out again. And that he, Mitri, hadn't seen him again after that, and was finishing the work himself. The place they've been doing up is on the same staircase as the murdered woman's apartment, on the 2nd floor. When I heard all that, I didn't let on to anyone about it at the time. This was still Dushkin speaking. But I found out everything I could about the murders, and came home still with the same suspicion. Then at 8 o'clock this morning, he's talking about the 3rd day after the murder, you understand, lo and behold, I saw Mikolai coming into my place. He wasn't sober, but he wasn't particularly drunk either, and he was able to understand what you said to him. He sat down on one of the benches and didn't say anything. Now, apart from him in the place at that time, there was only one customer, and a fellow I knew, a friend of mine, who was asleep on the bench, and our 2 boys, sir. Have you seen Mitri? I asked. No, he said, I haven't. And you've not been here? I've not been here, he said, since the day before yesterday. And where did you spend last night? At Pesky, with some friends in Kolomna. And where did you get those earrings? I found him on the pavement. It sounded fishy the way he said it. He didn't look at me. Have you heard what happened on that very same evening? At that very same time? On that same staircase? No, he said, I haven't. But he was listening. His eyes were staring out of his head, and he suddenly turned as white as chalk. As I was telling him about it, I saw him reach for his hat and start to get up. At that point, I tried to keep him from going. Wait, Mikolai, I said. What about the quick one? And I winked to one of my boys as a sign for him to hold the door, and came out from behind the bar. Then he shot out of my place, ran off down the street, and disappeared into a side lane. I haven't seen him since. By that time, my suspicions were confirmed, because you could tell a mile off he'd got something to hide. I bet he had, Zossimov said. Wait, you haven't heard the end of it. It goes without saying that they were immediately off at the double, hunting for Mikolai. Dushkin was put in the same detention, and his premises searched. Mitri got the same treatment. The friends in Kolomna were cleaned out too. But then suddenly, the day before yesterday, Mikolai was brought in. They'd arrested him in a roadhouse near the gate. He turned up there, taken off the crucifix he wore, a silver one it was, and asked for a glass of vodka in exchange for it. They gave him it. A few minutes later, the woman went out to the cowshed and looked through a crack in the wall. In the barn next door, he'd tied his sash to one of the beams and had made a noose. He'd got up on a chopping block and was trying to put the noose around his neck. The woman screamed at the top of her voice and people came running. So that's the sort of fellow you are. Take me to the police station, he said, and I'll confess to the lot. Well, they took him to a police station. The one here, that is, with all the appropriate honors. Well, they asked him this, and they asked him that. Who he was, what he did, how old he was. 22, and so on and so forth. To the question, when you and Dmitri were working together, did you see anyone on the staircase at such and such and such and such a time? He replied, well, all sorts of people must have been going up and down, but we never paid any attention to them. Didn't you hear anything? Any noises, for example? No, we didn't hear anything unusual. Well, were you aware, Mikolai, that on that very day, at such and such an hour, a certain widow and her sister were robbed and murdered? I didn't know anything about it. The first I heard of it was from Afanasy Pavlich the day before yesterday in a drinking den. And where did you get the earrings? I found them on the pavement. Why didn't you show up for work with Mitri the next day? Because I was off on a binge. Where did you have your binge? Oh, at this place and that. Why did you run away from Dushkin? Because I was dead scared. What were you scared of? That they'd think I did it. Why were you scared of that, if you don't feel guilty of having done anything wrong? Believe it or not, Zossimov, that question was put to him literally, in those words. I know it for a fact. I was given a reliable account of it. But you say that, eh? Yes. Well, they do have some evidence after all. It's not the evidence I'm talking about. It's that question. And the whole way they perceive their role. Oh, the devil with it. Well, so they kept on and on at him, piling up the pressure. And finally, he confessed. I didn't find it on the pavement. I found it in the place Mitri and I were decorating. Be more explicit. Well, Mitri and I had been painting that place all day. It was now 8 o'clock in the evening, and we were getting ready to go home, when Mitri picked up a paintbrush and daubed some paint on my face with it. Then he ran away, and I went after him, shouting fit to burst. And as I was coming off the staircase and turning into the gateway, I ran smack into the yard keeper and some other gentlemen who were with him. I don't remember how many of them there were. The yard keeper yelled at me, and so did another yard keeper. And the wife of one of them came out and started yelling at us too. And then a gentleman and a lady came through the gateway. And he yelled at us too, because Mitka and I were lying in the way. I grabbed Mitka by the hair and knocked him down and began pummeling him, and Mitka did the same to me. But we weren't doing it in a nasty sort of way, more like two friends having a playful scrap. Then Mitka got away from me and ran off down the street, and I set off after him. But I couldn't catch him up, so I went back on my own to the place we'd been decorating. I began to get on with it, waiting all the while in case Mitri came back. Well, by the door, in the passageway, In the corner behind the wall, I stepped on this little box. I looked and saw it was wrapped in paper. I took off the paper. There were these teeny little hooks. I unfastened them. And in the box, there were the earrings. Behind the door! It was lying behind the door! Behind the door! Raskolnikov suddenly shouted, looking at Razumikhin with a dull, frightful stare, raising himself on the sofa slowly with one arm. Yes, what is it? What's wrong with you? Why are you acting like that? Razumikhin said, also getting up. Never mind. Raskolnikov answered in a voice that was barely audible, sinking back onto the pillow and turning round again to face the wall. For a while, no one said anything. He must have nodded off and had a dream, Razumikhin said at last, directing an inquiring gaze at Zossimov, who gave a slight negative move of his head. Well, go on then, said Zossimov. What happened after that? After that? As soon as he saw the earrings, he forgot all about the apartment and Mitka. Ran off to Dushkin's establishment and, as you know, got a ruble out of him, lying to him that he found the rings on the pavement, and immediately went off on a binge. As for the murder, all he would do would keep on repeating what he'd said before. I don't know a thing about it. The first I heard of it was the day before yesterday. And why didn't you report here earlier? Because I was scared. Why did you want to hang yourself? Because of the thought. What thought? That they'd think I'd done it. Well, that's the whole story. Now what do you suppose they made of that? There's no need to suppose. There's a trail of sorts. A piece of incriminating evidence. They can't very well let your decorator go free now, can they? But I mean, they've practically identified him as the murderer. They haven't the shadow of a doubt. Nonsense. You're just getting yourself worked up. What about the earrings? You must admit, if one of those earrings from the old woman's trunk fell into Nikolai's hands on the very day of the murder, at the very hour it took place, they must have got there somehow. That means quite a lot in an investigation like this one. You ask how they got there? How they got there? Razumikhin exclaimed. Can it really be that you, a doctor, who has as his principal obligation the study of men, and who possesses more opportunity than anyone else of studying human nature, are you really unable to see, with all this information before you, what kind of a man this Nikolai is? Can you really not see, at first glance, that all the evidence he gave during his interrogation is the most sacred truth? Those earrings fell into his hands exactly as he swore they did. He stepped on the box and picked it up. The most sacred truth? But he himself confessed that he'd been lying right from the word go. Listen to me. Listen carefully. All of them. The yard keeper, Koch, Pestryakov, the other yard keeper, the wife of the first yard keeper, the artisan's wife who'd been sitting in the yard keeper's room at the time, the court councillor Kryukov, who had at that very moment alighted from a cab and was walking in through the gateway arm in arm with a lady. They all of them, 8 or 9 witnesses that is, swear unanimously that Nikolai had forced Dmitri to the ground, was lying on top of him, pummeling him, while Dmitri had seized hold of Nikolai by the hair and was pummeling him back. They were lying across the road, blocking the way. People were shouting and cursing at them from every side, while they, like little children, that was actually the expression used by those who were present, lay on top of each other, yelping, scuffling, and laughing. Each of them laughing to make the other laugh, with the most ridiculous faces. And then they ran away down the street chasing each other like kids. Got it? Now, take careful note. The bodies in the apartment were still warm. Do you hear? Warm when they found them. If those two, or even just Nikolai of his own, had killed anyone and broken any chests or merely taken part in some robbery or other, permit me to ask you one simple question. Would a state of mind like that, characterized as it was by yelping laughter and childish scraping in the entranceway, fit in with axes, blood, villainous cunning, deliberation, robbery? Imagine the scene. They've only just committed the murders some 5 or 10 minutes previously, because it turns out that the bodies were still warm. And suddenly, leaving the bodies in the apartment with the door open and knowing that people had just passed that way, they go out and sprawl around in the roadway like children, laughing and drawing everyone's attention to themselves. For there were 10 unanimous witnesses who say that they did. Well, there's no denying it's a bit odd. I suppose it's impossible, but no, brother, no buts. If the earrings, which turned up in Nikolai's hands at the very day and hour the murder took place, really constitute such an important piece of evidence against him, though it can be directly explained by his testimony and is thus contestable evidence, then we must also take into consideration the exonerating evidence, since it is also irrefutable. Now, being familiar with our jurisprudence, what do you suppose? Is it willing to accept? Is it even capable of accepting a piece of evidence of this kind? One founded purely on a simple psychological impossibility, on a simple state of mind, as being irrefutable and having the effect of demolishing all the incriminating and circumstantial evidence, whatever it may be? No, it is not. It is not. It is not willing to do so on any account, for a box was found, and a man tried to hang himself. Something he would never have done if he had not felt himself to be guilty. There is the capital question. There is what makes me get so worked up. Perhaps now you will understand. Yes, I can see that you're worked up. Wait, though. I've got to ask. What proof is there that the box containing the earrings really did come from the old woman's chest? It's been proved, Razumikhin answered, frowning and almost reluctantly. Koch recognized the earrings and was able to identify the man who had pawned them, and he positively confirmed they belonged to him. That's not so good. Now something else. Did anyone see Nikolai during the time that Koch and Pestryakov were going upstairs? Can't that be proved somehow? That's just it. Nobody saw him, Razumikhin replied with vexation. That's the very devil of it. Not even Koch and Pestryakov noticed him when they were going upstairs, though their testimony wouldn't carry much weight now in any case. We saw that the door to the apartment was open, they said, and that work must be going on in there, but we continued on our way up and didn't pay attention, and don't remember whether there were actually workmen inside at that moment or not. So the only exonerating evidence is that the two men had been pummeling each other and laughing. Suppose that's firm enough proof, but let me ask you now. How do you account for the whole sequence of events? How do you explain his finding the earring if he really did find them in the way he says he did? How do I explain it? There's nothing to explain. The matter is quite clear. At any rate, the path of inquiry that ought to be followed is clear and proven, and it's the box that has done the proving for us. It was the real murderer who dropped those earrings. The murderer was inside the apartment when Koch and Pestryakov knocked at the door and had fastened the bolt. Koch was stupid and went downstairs. At that point, the murderer left the apartment and went downstairs too, because he had no other means of exit. On his way down, he hid from Koch, Pestryakov, and the yard keeper by ducking into the empty apartment, the instant after Dmitri and Nikolai had gone running out of it. He waited behind the door while the yard keeper and the others were going upstairs, waited until their footsteps had died away, and then took himself off downstairs as calm as you please, at the very moment Dmitri and Nikolai were running out into the street. Everyone had gone their separate ways, and there was no one left in the gateway. He may have been seen, but no one paid him any attention, as there are always so many people going in and out. As for the box, it fell out of his pocket as he was standing behind the door, and he didn't notice, as he had other things on his mind. But the box offers clear proof that it was precisely there that he stood. There you have it. Yes, brother, but it won't do. It's just a little too clever. Why do you say that? Because it all fits together too well. It's too neat. Like something out of a play. You really are the most... But at that moment the door opened, and there entered a new dramatis persona who was not familiar to a single one of those present. Thank you so very much for listening. If you enjoyed, please like, comment, share, all that jazz. And if you really enjoyed, do subscribe because there is more to come. If you're listening on podcast, please leave a review as it helps get this in front of as many people as possible, and reading your reviews really makes my day. Help me get those wonderful, wonderful Spotify monetization goals by, watching the show while you sleep to get me those listening hours, and share it around with your friends so I can get many, many new listeners there too. If you want to support the show further, you can click on screen to the Ko-Fi link, which is now here if you're on YouTube, or you can find the same link in the description. Once again, thank you very, very much for listening. And until next time, bye-bye.